Hello, 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 and welcome to Property Gamechangers Live on the Property Gamechangers Facebook page, where we join with people who are changing the game in property. So join us with a cup of tea, glass of wine, whatever you've got, and relax as we speak to some amazing people. And tonight is no different. We are celebrating the power of ethical property investing to really change lives. We're debunking the myth that you need a lot of money to get started in property. And of course, we're inspiring each other to believe bigger, to be bolder, and to be game changers. And tonight's special guest is Sabrina Amofa. Sabrina is an investor here in South Wales near me, and she bridges the gap between investors who are seeking to invest in property but really don't know where to start. And she provides a full one-stop sourcing renovation service so that people can build their property portfolio here in South Wales, where it's a bit less than many of Sabrina's clients who are based in London. And it's a really fantastic service. And I know a lot of people who Sabrina has really helped massively with the work she does. So I'm really excited to have you here, Property Game Changer, Sabrina Amofa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
How are you doing tonight, Sabrina?
I'm good. I'm very well, thank you. Very well, very well. I mean, the weather's changed on us, unfortunately. It's pouring with rain today, so slightly changed the mood, but I'm still good, thank you.
It was too hot to work.
I know. It has been. I've been working amongst the water, actually, so having a day.
Yeah, wearing any clothes at all felt like being overdressed.
Yeah.
Home, it's okay.
Oh gosh.
So Sabrina, I was going to say, for a lot of people, there's a moment where they decide that they're going to get into property. Was there a moment like that for you?
There was a moment like that for me. There was a moment where I got fed up, that was for sure, and I wanted something else, and I'd heard of property, and so I decided to go and get some education, but not looking to do property in such a formal way of establishing a business per se, but more so just getting one or two under my belt and seeing what else happens. So after being asked for happy endings, I don't know if you know what that is, but asked for many happy endings, working as a beauty therapist full time, I decided I need to get out of here. And having attended a Rich Dad, Poor Dad event, I heard all about lease options, and for me, that changed everything. So that was my turning point. I can get started in property with a little bit of money. Sign me up.
Well, this is the most interesting turning point that we've had so far. Intriguing. Now, I haven't heard of happy endings, but I'm possibly guessing. I don't know if I'm going in the right direction.
Oh no! Don't you
is this with male customers?
It is. Yes.
Wow. I'm with you.
Working as a massage therapist, so you can kind of get an idea of how happy you can feel at the end with that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll say no more on that one. So you went to this Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar, and that could have been your happy ending there. And you heard about lease options, but it's a big jump from there to hearing about something to actually getting started. So. What was your journey like from that seminar to actually getting started in property?
It was really interesting, actually, because I having attended the seminar, it seemed it was a very straightforward A to B process. And I thought, I'm going to just get this. This is going to be really easy. But from that seminar to getting my first property deal per se, I went through quite a lot of hoops. And funnily, a lot of it was not just the physical hoops that you would go through in terms of doing the work, but there was a lot of mental barriers I had up at the time that I had to face whilst doing the work of knocking on the doors, standing outside the train station. I did the ultimate guerrilla marketing that they teach you to do, and I was doing all of that, but in my mind I didn't think I had the self-belief that was necessary, because we were working with such large sums. And I just didn't, I'd gone from beauty therapy where I'm charging £50 for a massage to now trying to purchase a property for £1 that is actually worth 350,000. It's a bit, out of this world for me. So it was a challenge. It was a challenge, and there was a few, challenges I had to go through. But all the while, it helped. It did help in terms of, it helps me now even, but it did help go through those challenges, because as I got a mentor and put things in place to eventually get my first house, I didn't realize that I was actually even facing mental barriers. It was her that helped me see it. So it was an interesting journey, and it was not straightforward. It took about 8 months of trying to do lease options.
Actually, 8 months isn't long.
8 months. And the thing is, I was getting, I was doing the leaflet, the guerrilla marketing, I was getting interest, but I didn't know how to actually transact. I didn't know the terminology, the little intricate detail that you need to know to legally transact on a to help a motivated seller. That's more so what you're doing, is helping a motivated seller. And I didn't know that aspect. So it took me 8 whole months before I
get your first lease option.
Sorry?
To get your first lease option, it took you 8 months to get your first lease option.
I didn't even get a lease option after all of that. I gave up on lease options and went to rent.
Oh, right.
Because when you're doing this, you're still networking. I'm still networking, still doing all the guerrilla marketing, still speaking to people, not, wondering, they're not really calling me back, but still doing it anyway. And I'd heard about rent to rent, and it seemed a lot easier, but I was so determined to do lease options that I stuck at it. And then 8 months comes along, and I attended a networking event and met two other guys who'd said, we should really get into, rent to rent. If you're struggling, get into rent to rent. Yeah. I thought, well, let me try it. And at that time, they wanted to do rent to rent as well. So we all decided to form a business together and get started. And we got one within the first month. It was so easy.
Yes.
But, lease option for me was the path of a lot of resistance.
Well, I find that the lease option comes along while you're doing your other business. It's not coming along, you're not getting a lease option sort of every month or every week or on the regular. They come along like buses. But so you got your first rent-to-rent deal. You're in business. You set up a partnership with these guys, and so tell us about that. How was it? And
so that was really good, because I was working with 2 other investors, and they were very experienced, and I was still pretty much brand new. Still am. I call myself always still am brand new. And they had a lot of experience. And what I'd realized, again, that's when I realized I had a lot of challenges mentally in terms of my belief in myself in doing this. Because a lot of the stuff I would worry about, they would say, oh, you're worrying about the wrong stuff. Why are you worried about this? And I think, you worry about such detail. What about this? What about that? Such detail. So from there, we worked together, and we managed to get 6 properties within, I think, like 3 months. And we was managing loads of rooms, like 45 rooms, and it was going really well. The turnover was fantastic, and the business went really well. But we decided to part ways, because for many reasons. We all had goals. It was only a short-term thing, and plus I wanted to own property. I really wanted to own property. I heard so much about how much easier it is to not only just have a rental income, but also have some capital growth. So I wanted to look at that and explore that area. So I was doing the rent to rent for about 3 years before deciding to look at doing but the thing is, even though I wanted to own property, I still didn't fall into that easily either. I ended up doing a bit of deal sourcing. I went into deals.
With rent to rent, that was in London. Were you in London?
That was in London, in Catford and Lewisham.
Yeah, because so many people say to me, I don't know if rent to rent works in London, but you actually found it really easy.
Oh yeah, absolutely, it works. I think rent to rent's a fantastic strategy to utilize in London. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So then you moved on to deal sourcing. So how was that?
That was good. That was good as well. It was an easy transition, because by then I'd understood property, the management aspect. One of these deals had turned into, one of the rent trends had actually accidentally turned into a lease option. And when I say accidentally, wasn't, I'd obviously not been looking for lease options at that time, but one of the houses we had, he wanted to move to Germany and sell up with him and his partner, and which he had done. And this house was just kind of paying him monthly, and he was thinking about selling. So we decided to, offer to purchase that property over 5 years, sorry, 7 years. And then, with the amount we're paying him now, we just upped that. And that turned to a lease option, went really well. But with deal sourcing, I decided to source HMOs because I was already doing HMOs with rent to rents. And I thought if I could, find a deal that someone actually buys off me, I must know about what deals are. And at the same time, I did decide to look for a mentor because I wanted to do it, properly and professionally. So I found a mentor, a lady called Dina Honey, was super. And she taught me how to establish myself. And then I continue, all the while I'm still networking and, change the way how I worked a little bit to now source deals for investors who are looking in Croydon only, HMOs in Croydon, and I'd be your go-to girl for that person or for that reason. And that went quite well. I managed to find my first client at a PIN meeting, and I found him a HMO and then managed the renovation. He asked me to manage that renovation. I thought it was just going to be a straight source, but he didn't have no one to manage it for him. So I said, well, I'll do it. And so I ended up running around finding the people to do the renovation, the builders, and then put all the tenants in at the end, which was really good.
Was that your first renovation?
That was my first ever renovation.
Wow.
Yeah, HMO. And it went terribly wrong.
Yeah, the first ones always have memories, shall we say? So, what happened?
Well, we had quotes come in at £65,000, and I'm quite thorough. I'm very detailed, so I usually would like to know everything as much as I can ahead of time. So I got the HMO compliance team to come in, and they printed out the specs of what would be, necessary to make the property compliant, and then I had builders come in and quote us on that, alongside the kitchen and the bathroom. And all the quotes came in at 65, as well as all the people I spoke to who were doing HMOs at the time. They all said they're paying around 60 to 65. But my investor, my client who I was working for, had said that he wants it done for 30, and that's his maximum budget. And bear in mind, my numbers that I'd worked this deal to said 65 as well. So because I'd already spoken to people. So when he said 30, I was blown away. But me being the right old person who likes a bit of competition, I went and found someone who could do it for 30, and that was the problem right there.
Yeah. Say no more. Sometimes, the customer's not always right.
And that was a really key learning for me, that the customer isn't always right. Yeah. When you're hands-on, go ahead, sorry.
No, go on.
No, when you're working hands-on on the project, you can see something from a total different perspective, isn't it, from when someone who's not. So that was interesting.
If it costs 65, it costs 65, unless you're going to do it yourself. If you then get it cheaper.
Yeah. Well, we ended up paying 85 in total. After all of that, it went so wrong that we ended up having to pay 85. All the costs added up to £85,000. But
guessing that the 30 guy came in, botched everything up, and then you got to pay somebody else to fix that and do what was supposed to have been done in the first place. Yeah.
Well, we had that 3 times on this project. We had 3 different sets of builders, which was quite interesting. But you know what I did learn, and sometimes I still have this challenge to this day. Well, I can have this challenge to this day sometimes, is I think when you're coming in, if you haven't got experience, it can show. Or if you look really young, people think you can take advantage of you. And I think that's something that's been quite interesting throughout my journey in property. Now, obviously, I talk with experience, and when someone's trying to pull wool over my eyes, I can spot that a mile away and nip that in the bud immediately. But at the beginning, oh my goodness, you got this young girl. I look about 19, and think people saying, "Are you dealing with all this?" All right, they run circles around me. So each and every one of those builders did, until I found one who just didn't, and it was super, really super. Yeah.
Although it's not unique to you. You can look old and haggard, and builders can still try. You know, every property investor that I've had, that I've talked to on this show, when you say builders, they all put their hand to their head, because every single one, if you've done more than 2 refurbishments, you've got a story almost. You know, there's always a story, and people are always talking about builders, because builders have got different objectives to you, and it takes, and yeah, not everybody's trustworthy, honest, working to those same standards.
The ethics are quite different in some of them, isn't it? Get in and get out. And one thing I did know is they do exactly what you say and nothing more sometimes. So, oh gosh, getting them to think out of the box was a bit of a challenge. Gosh.
But it's good that you're a details person, because that's one of the things, obviously, that works really well. Nikki does that and writes everything out, you know, everything agreed out on the schedule and all of that. So that would have really stood you in good stead.
Yeah, absolutely.
You went from this one deal, you've got your HMO that you sourced, you refurbished it, you got to the end, got a result for the guy, because
he got a great result in the end. Actually, he got a very high valuation. It sort of actually turned out good. It was just the process, but got that process.
And what did you move on to after that? Because I know, for example, that you're still in London at this stage, and you're now in Wales, so at somewhere along the line. So tell us about the journey between London and Wales.
And Wales. So after that project, I went on to do at least another 6 or so more with the same gentleman, and a few others as well. But those are my core projects. I focused a lot on his work. Because the system was set up so well. And you know, they were just general cosmetic refurbs, kitchen, bathrooms. Some were an extension, and then I went on to do one house that we turned into 3 flats, and that was my most easiest job I'd ever done. And I was quite scared doing so, because, you know, more so because of compliance. Working with planning, I wasn't really used to doing all of that, so it's quite scary. So having done that, I managed to save a little bit of money, but also I'd missed out on a lot of projects. I was getting gazumped quite a lot, and I was trying to work myself up to doing 2 projects at a time, 3 projects at a time, because I had the team to now accommodate all of that. But I just was missing out on auction deals. Just so much kept falling around, and I just felt like we was coming to a slowdown. And as well as that, London, I mean, I couldn't imagine it now, but it was appearing to be quite aggressive at the time. And I'm a mother, I'm a mum, and I was looking at my trying to balance out both work and still parenting, and all the while my mum had moved to Wales. So whilst I'm busy working, my mum had moved to Wales, and I'd go and visit her, and I realized how quiet it was here and how friendly people were. And it was almost like when I'd come, problems had melted away. It was a different vibe. So in doing that, I started looking at properties just to see what the market's like here. And I realized it's a lot more slower. Capital growth is not as quick as London, but there is capital growth, and the property prices were a lot more cheaper. So I thought I might be able to enjoy parenting a lot more better if I could live up here and, have a quieter life. Be more closer with my son. I've just got 1 child, and I wanted to do homeschooling. That was almost my goal, to do homeschooling. And so I thought moving to Wales might be able to allow me to do that. So when the house that I'd converted to 3 flats had come to an end, I decided to pack up and let this be my last project, and then move to Wales to just build a portfolio and start property down here. So that was the turning point. That was the decision making around all of that, kind of being closer to family, living somewhere really nice, and, finding a new investment place that would allow me to homeschool.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that you were. I've seen your son, because I know he does a lot of your photography and videos. Yeah. And how old is he now?
He is 12 now. He's just turned 12, but at the time he was, I believe, 9.
Wow, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just intrigued. So I'd love to know if you can remember when you did the house into 3 flats in London. I'm guessing that that would have added a significant value. So if you can remember, can you tell us what you bought it for? What was
Yeah.
the renovation and what it revalued at?
So yes, so that property was bought from the auction, Barnard Marcus auction. It was purchased for 508,000. And what happened on that road? A lot of the houses had converted, but none of them had got planning permission. So we were able to do this legitimately because we were going to title split and then refinance. Title split and then refinance. So what we ended up doing is doing the renovation. Oh, it's exactly that actually. Renovation. That cost 145. We had some other costs, unexpected costs, so probably about 155 all in with other unexpected costs. Forgetting to put in windows in the place. It's the floor plan. We forgot a few things on there. But after that, the end value was 1.2 million after that. Yeah. Which was really, really good. And yeah, but it was all legitimate. We'd done it all through planning. It was quite creative actually, because at the time we had to add an additional floor in order to cater to one of the flats. And we couldn't go ahead with planning for that until the floor had been created. But the risk was, do we create the floor and then not get planning, or do we just take the risk and see what happens? So we took the risk and see what happens, and it ended up being worthwhile, which was really good. So that was a happy client, a very happy client.
So that's about 450k after
in equity
done.
In equity.
Not bad.
That was really good. That was one of no, it was really good. And the client was really happy with that. It was really, he was
really.
You wouldn't have thought so during the process. Oh gosh, it was such high standards, but it was a good project. Yeah.
Well, you don't get many flips like that in Wales, do you?
No.
But so that's great. So you made that your swan song. You moved to Wales with your son, who was 9 at the time.
Yeah.
And you settled in here, and then tell us about how things really developed from there.
So when I moved here, the aim was to, just build my portfolio and work alongside with others to do so, which is pretty much what I've ended up doing. But it did take a while to settle in and, understand the area from a different perspective. Well, the research you have to do, isn't it? Although I moved to an area called Neath, which is next door to Swansea, I still had to kind of look around me to see which area was the best route to go into and how I can achieve a good yield. My objective was to purchase the property, renovate it, and then rent it out, and then refinance and pull out that money to give back to the investor who I borrowed the money from. So the numbers I worked to were quite tight. They're quite tight because I wanted to start off low. I didn't want to go in with an expensive property. So my first project, I was looking to purchase something around 50 to 60,000 maximum from the auction or from an agency, and then do that process, purchase, renovate it, and do that. And it took me 4 months to get the first deal. It was loads of viewings, lots of lots of effort. But when I found the property, it stood out like a sore thumb, because with you doing the viewings, you get to know your numbers and you get to know exactly what to look for in what area. So as soon as it jumps out, you can go and put your offer down on that. And I'd done that, and that was quite smooth. It was very smooth, very straightforward. In that, I ended up meeting quite a few agents. I never network. I haven't networked as much as I did in London. I did want to take a bit of a different approach here. I wanted to take an approach, but so in doing that in networking, I ended up getting a rent-to-rent as well, or getting 2 rent-to-rents, which I've given one back now. And just kind of help other people source for other people, so help other people build their portfolio as well. So I've had some clients who I've worked with before in London who having me doing what I've done here, have become interested and asked if I could purchase them something and manage it for them. So I've done that for a few investors, which they've come and have a look, and it's been quite straightforward. So it's been really straightforward. Very straightforward. I came here from London with that whole London energy, but I think the biggest difference here is getting used to the culture of how people operate, it's made me slow down. It's made me slow down quite a lot, because here it's not really about the numbers per se, if that makes sense. I think here they don't really care if you come here with a wad of cash and say, look, I've got this £5 million and I want to buy whatever you have. That's not how you would form a relationship with them here. Whereas in London, I found that worked quite well. If you had the money, they're giving you all their attention. But here it's more based on the relationship of, it's more intimate, if that makes sense. So they really want to know about you and how you are and, what you've got going on. So it became more personable, having a intimate conversation about yourself and just being open and honest about where you are and what you're looking to do as a person, not this big business person, if that makes sense. And in forming those relationships, it really did help me to get, my clients their buy-to-lets. So I think that's been a really good eye-opener, moving to a new location and having to fit in to this new location. Yeah. So it's been...
That's interesting, isn't it? I hadn't really thought about that it's more about relationships here than based on London. But I suppose I've never lived in London, so I wouldn't know.
Yes. Oh, I never would have guessed. You've never lived in London?
No. My sister lived in London for over 20 years, and I never thought she would ever leave. But she's moved from London to Newport.
Oh, wow. So you've managed to move her out.
Of all the places you would move to. So when I lived in Edinburgh for 15 years, I would try and tempt her up to Scotland, but she wasn't having any of it. And now in Newport, she's living here. We both like it, as you say, though. It's really good.
Newport's quite affluent, though, isn't it? It's quite busy. It's a lot more. It's a lot more busy than Wales, I bet, isn't it? Not Wales, sorry.
I laugh at the idea of Newport being quite an affluent area. I don't think I've heard it described like that before. I suppose it depends what you compare it with.
Yeah. How many people reside there?
I don't know. Oh gosh.
Okay. Yeah. In Swansea, there's 240,000 residents in Swansea, and but a lot of them are more international. Not a lot of them are more international. Of course not. There's 2 universities here, so it's quite diverse. It is quite diverse. But then you do have people who've lived here. The majority of people have lived here all their lives. So it's quite.
You've gone from starting out with nothing and then attracting all of these investors that you've had long-term relationships for, you've really helped them grow their portfolios, etc. What advice would you give to people who are maybe starting out, and what you were saying earlier, that your mindset at the very beginning, you didn't feel confident in yourself to attract that investment, but now you do. And what tips would you give to other people who are starting off about how to develop that mindset for success and to attract the investment they need?
I think the key thing is to know what it is that you want. I think know what you want and have an idea of how you're going to get there helps. Because I could see my plan. When you're talking to investors, you can base your information off of something. It does help to be able to have something to base your information off of, so you're not kind of second guessing yourself. A lot of it, when I look back, because I'd done such a small amount of information, I'd done a 3-day seminar. Now I'm going to try and secure a £350,000 house. I never knew the number. I didn't know what I needed to know, so I wasn't confident at all. So I think if I'd had a better plan, know exactly what it is that I'm trying to achieve, then I could have confidence, have a lot more confidence and be confident in what it is I'm trying to attain. So I think that was quite key. And reading a lot of books, reading some books that would help you, have a little bit more belief in yourself. I mean, one book only recently read this book, and a lot of people have read it before, but the Grant Cardone 10X book, that book, because it seems to be, he made me feel like the stuff I'm doing is small. I should be doing so much more. It makes you hold your bit to a higher standard, and it makes you kind of, look at how you're viewing things. But there are some really good books out there that you could be read. I've actually done a YouTube video on books, actually, good books that I've read that have helped me in my career in property to, just have a bit more confidence in myself and belief. And I think being honest about where you are when building those relationships. Just, if you're at the beginning of the journey, be very honest about that and try not to be something you're not. Because I don't know if you've had this experience, but do you feel sometimes in property it can seem like this big thing and you've got to really, humble yourself and just remember it's just a product at the end of the day. It's just another product. And I know it's property, but it's just another product. So not make it seem this huge big thing that's beyond you, and just make it more relatable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. So I love your YouTube channel, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And the content is amazing, but the production quality is so high as well.
Do you think so? Wow.
Yeah, I do.
So much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So I just want to shout out Sabrina Amofa on YouTube. Any of you who are regular YouTubers, you need to be searching Sabrina Amofa. She's definitely got a face for video. If you're listening to the podcast, you need to go and check her out. So what's one of the books that had a real impact on you that you mentioned in this video that really had an impact on you?
I think the E-Myth was quite good. The E-Myth was good because it helped me. I'm a starter. Got to know your strengths. You got to know your strengths and your weaknesses. I love to start things, and I can be quite terrible at finishing them. I'm really good at being at the starting line, but I know I need to hand things over before I lose interest, and then I don't finish it. And there's areas I can be really intricate in certain things, and this book, reading the E-Myth, did help me see where I am within this line of management. So, they have different people skills and people qualities that he mentions in the book. And reading that book, it allowed me to see myself, see my strengths and see my weaknesses, and then work on those rather than kind of beat myself up and then which doesn't help at all, and it keeps you where you are, if anything. So reading that book allowed me to see where I need help and be able to outsource so I can get the help that I need in areas where I need it. And that book was really good for me, because when I started doing that was the first time I actually got a VA, a virtual assistant, and things became so much more easier. And I was thinking, why did no one tell me about this before? Getting a virtual assistant, and me, I can be a bit of a manager and I'm ready, and I can be a bit of an entrepreneur and I'm ready. So just allowing her to do the areas that where I fall short, where she can, really helped. So reading that book was really good for me, because it opened me up to things I didn't know about before at all.
That's great. So a lot of people would like to get a VA. So tell us about what that process was like, because when you haven't got one, it seems like, oh, what do you do? How do you find one? How do you know it's the right one? And then what do you ask them to do? So can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So getting a VA was quite an interesting process, actually. I went on Upworks.com, and on there you can, there's multiple selections of VAs on there. But first things first, I did look at what I needed help with, and my key thing at that time was just finding properties online that fitted a particular criteria, and then once they fit this criteria, go and do a little bit of research to see if it achieved a certain amount of money on the resale prices, and if it had, then book it in for a viewing. But that process would take me so long for some reason. And I noticed that a whole day's gone by and I've only collected 5 properties. So I thought, I need someone who can do this so I don't get caught up in the work. So what I decided to do is draw up that process as a system. So I've done a step-by-step of what I did. I've done screenshots of what it looked like, and literally did it step-by-step with words as well. And put that all together. And then I put out a job description on Upworks of what it was I was looking for, and how much I was willing to pay. And a lot of people had come through who'd done similar things, or just generally data analysis people had come through and had applied. And you have the opportunity to give them some work to see whether you like them or not, and see if they work within your time scales and so forth. So I'd done that with a few people, and from there chose a virtual assistant from there, which was quite good. But it is a daunting process. It's funny you should say that, because although I say it now and I make it sound so easy, it was quite daunting, because you don't know, do you? You really don't know how they're going to be. And I have had bad experiences.
And
but sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go on.
But I think in property in general, I find that you kind of can't get caught up in the things that go wrong. Having to let go and move on quite quickly has worked quite well. So when a VA's gone off for 2 weeks with no response, no anything, just don't get caught up in it and get upset. It's just time to find another VA. And that's all it is. So that's quite straightforward.
And have you moved on to give lots of other tasks, or is it just more or less stayed with that?
Oh no, I've definitely given more tasks. So some stuff, social media. I'm starting to do some YouTube stuff where possible, drawing up the descriptions and so forth, because there's just not enough hours in the day. And generally my property due diligence, they help me a lot with property due diligence, because that can be just the initial elements. I always do the thorough part, but the initial criteria, I do get a lot of help on that as well.
That sounds great. That sounds great.
And it's not always, sometimes it's not always consistent either. Sometimes I use them and sometimes I don't need them, because work isn't always full on. It's not always full on. Sometimes it does get quiet during quiet moments, especially with COVID.
Yeah.
COVID has been a lot quieter. So,
I'm curious to know how everyone with young children has been homeschooling recently, but how did your homeschooling go? Because that would have been a big change. Or did you homeschool before all this?
Yeah, I homeschooled for a whole year, and for his year 5, he was being homeschooled, and it was an interesting process, because I'm actually a qualified teacher. I am a qualified teacher. So I just kind of put those skills into practice. Like I said, I love detail. So I done a timetable, done the whole setup, and it allowed me to teach him things that, they weren't teaching in school, such as financial education, which was really important for me. History, which was really important for me. I called them, it wasn't called people skills. I forgot the name of the class, but it was where you talk about, being disciplined, determined, these kind of skills, these people skills that you need to be successful in life, however you define success. But it was interesting because I had to take him to my meetings. So I continued to work. I broke down the day. The first day would go to him. The first 3 hours of the day would go to him. So we only done 3 hours a day, but it was fun. It was concentrated on just him and I. And then the rest of the day, about 3 to 4 hours, I would then work. But he would come with me. He would come to meetings. Sometimes he would sit in the meeting, or sometimes I'd ask him to sit 2 seats back. If he's in a very hyper mood, I'd give him an iPad, sit 2 seats back, or usually, 2 seats in front of me so I could see him. And he'd come to my accountant's meetings. He would come to my mentorships. He would come along, and it was okay. People were quite receptive to having a child in on the meeting, which was quite interesting. Yeah. So it was okay. It didn't get in the way. But I think the challenge was just trying to keep the workload going the way it had been before I'd decided to homeschool. So work did slow down a lot. I wasn't doing as many projects at all. That slowed down quite considerably. But I was okay to take that hit if it meant me teaching my son at home. yeah, yeah. So that was quite cool. It was interesting.
And then you decide to go back to school.
Yes, we decided to send him back to school for year 6 because I can't remember why actually. I think he wanted to just have more friends, be around friends again. The social aspect. There's a huge homeschooling huge homeschooling society or group of people outside of school. Actually, it's quite big. So we joined that, and you do meet up twice a week. You can go to all the leisure centres, all the fun, the gymnasiums, the trampolining. You get really cheap discounts for those. So we done that every week. But I think school's a little bit different. I guess it provides another thing. Yeah. But funny, we're here now. We're actually having that same conversation. He's going into year 8, and we're having a conversation of now. Do you want to go to school? Because we've been homeschooling through this COVID situation, and he liked it because it was back to that homeschooling that we did before, and he did enjoy it. So we're having that conversation now. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. And which way is it swinging at the moment? Do you think he'll go back?
He wants to go back to school, and I want him to go back to school.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll just watch this space.
Yeah, I actually do want him to go back, but he doesn't. But we'll see. I mean, he's bigger now. He could help more in the business. He wasn't able to before. Now, like you said, he does do a lot more for the YouTube videos. He's very good with photography. He's great with the research. I tested him the other day to do the VA's task, and he's done it very well. So, and children can start working from 13 years old. So if we could start working together as soon as he hits 13, that would be good.
Yeah.
But education, you can't top that, can you?
It's great to have that early start as well in business. That he could get working with you, especially in the property business. There's so many different types of things that you can do or be interested in. I think, it's a great education, and it'll certainly give him that ambition to start saving so that he can get involved with buying properties as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, he already has his first one. He's already got one himself, so he's actually already got his own buy-to-let. But no, you're absolutely right, and he wants to be a developer when he's older, which is nice. And he does come to all my building projects. He points things out to the builder. What about this? I think you missed a bit here. He likes to get involved. Mum's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. Being a boy, I think he wants to help his mum, but it's really good. It really is good.
So tell us about what sort of things you've got going on now. We've heard about your journey so far. What have you got going on now, and where do you see yourself in the future, Sabrina?
So now I'm still doing rent to rent. I'm still, finding projects for clients. And I've still, I've just recently finished doing a renovation for a client in London. That was really good. It's a buy to sell. We had a few issues, which has been quite interesting. It's funny how you do different projects and they all come with their own individual challenge. Can't anticipate. So it's pretty much more of the same thing: purchasing, renovating, and refinancing, and working with clients to do the same in Wales. That's what I will be doing for the upcoming 5 years. 5 years. My aim is just to continue doing that and eventually grow, into doing bigger projects. So more blocks of flats, which would be really good. And depending on how the government are going, I mean, with the changes that they're having, with 6 months notice periods, it is making me look at things in a way I never looked at before with the political changes. So I'm keeping an eye on that, because I do love property, but at the same time you do want to be in a business that, if you don't want so much red tape that you can't enjoy yourself anymore. So that's something I'm keeping my eye on. But for the next 5 years, property is all part of my plan, just to grow my portfolio and others at the same time.
And one of our mutual friends, because I didn't even know some of the things that you're doing until one of our mutual friends, Tunde, just said, oh, Sabrina saved me, because he had a project in London which was going badly wrong with another person. And you came in and saved the day and just got everything shipshape and got it all shipped out. He was really delighted with the work and the refinance and so on. So I think
he's great. Yeah. Yeah, it was having, I guess, having that experience in London has helped. So when people, do need a bit of help, you can kind of put things their way. But yeah, that's good. I'm really glad to hear that.
And
Yeah.
people can find out more, because I know you've got pictures. The before and after pictures are brilliant. And are they on your website, Sabrina?
Yes. I haven't put any of my new projects on there, which I need to do. I need to put my new stuff up there. But yes, they will find before and after pictures of my work on my website. Yeah, absolutely. And on Facebook and on YouTube. If you watch the videos, you'll see me on there too, talking about some of those. And yeah, so they can find some of that there, definitely.
So we've got the Sabrina Amofa YouTube channel. And what's your URL for your website, Sabrina?
So it's www.lewis, which is Lewis, Lewis Pownall, which is POWNALL.co.uk. And you can see it all there, see everything that we do there. Or they can always private message me through Facebook, and I can direct you in the right direction to see some of my work and projects. Yeah.
Brilliant. And finally, to bring to a close, what's been the best thing for you about starting in property, and what?
The best thing for me has been the flexibility and the freedom to use my creativity, to be able to be creative in any way, whether it be the way you form a relationship with someone in terms of how you work together. There's no rigidness in anything I do. There's a lot of flexibility, even down to the way you position a property or renovate the property and the things you put in there. I just love the flexibility, being able to use my creativity in property. I absolutely love it. So it allows you to be yourself. It has allowed me to be myself. Yeah. So that's what I really have liked, to work to my own schedule.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And is there anything that, as we're closing, you would like to say that we haven't touched upon so far?
I think for anyone who's new or getting started in property, I think the key thing to remember is that that you are an asset. You are an asset in any transaction or any property that you're doing. That if you're having any doubts or any beliefs about yourself that that may be slowing you down, stopping you from excelling in property, it's just believing that you are an asset yourself. And although you don't have money, that's not a big thing to stop you moving forward in property, because you have time, and from when you have time and knowledge, you can excel in anything. So don't ever let money be something that stops you from excelling in property, and just have hard work and determination to succeed. Absolutely. But otherwise, good luck, and thank you so much for watching and tuning in.
Brilliant. And thank you for coming and sharing your story. It has been hugely inspiring how you moved from London, you come to Wales with your son and built an amazing future for lots of the people who you've been working with, and for yourself. And we've just had people saying thanks, and Lady Fitness is on saying hi. So thank you, Sabrina, for joining us today. And thank you for watching and listening, and I will see you all again next week. Bye for now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.